Gospel lesson comes from us today from Luke 15, 1 through 3 and 11b through 32. Now the tax collectors and sinners were all gathering around to hear him. But the Pharisees and the teachers of the law muttered, "This man welcomes sinners and eats with them." Then Jesus told them this parable. There was a man who had 2 sons. The younger one said to his father, "Father, give me my share of the estate." So he divided his property between them. Not long after that, the younger son got together all he had, set off for a distant country, and there squandered his wealth and wild living. After he had spent everything, there was a severe famine in that whole country, and he began to be in need. So he went and hired himself out to a citizen of that country, who sent him to his fields to feed pigs. He longed to fill his stomach with the pods that the pigs were eating, but no one gave him anything. When he came to his senses, he said, "How many of my father's hired men have food to spare, and here I am starving to death? I will set out and go back to my father and say to him, 'Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Make me like one of your hired men.' So he got up and went to his father. But while he was still a long way off, his father saw him and was filled with compassion. He ran to his son, threw his arms around him, and kissed him. The son said to him, 'Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son.' But the father said to his servants, 'Quick, bring the best robe and put it on him. Put a ring on his finger and sandals on his feet. Bring the fattened calf and kill it. Let's have a feast and celebrate. For this son of mine was dead and is now alive again. He was lost and is found.' So they began to celebrate. Meanwhile, the older son was in the field. When he came near the house, he heard music and dancing. So he called one of the servants and asked him what was going on. 'Your brother has come,' he replied, 'and your father has killed the fattened calf because he has him back safe and sound.' The older brother became angry and refused to go in. So his father went out and pleaded with him. But he answered his father, 'Look, all these years I've been slaving for you and never disobeyed your orders. Yet you never gave me even a young goat so I could celebrate with my friends. But when this son of yours, who has squandered your property with prostitutes, come home, you killed a fattened calf for him.' 'My son,' the father said, 'you are always with me, and everything I have is yours. But we had to celebrate and be glad because this brother of yours was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found.'" So ends the reading.
We're going to look at this story from, this will be the third direction, maybe 4 altogether. Because I think this story tells us more about what God is like and who we are than most any other parable that Jesus gives. Well, actually, I went online. Go ahead and take it to and I went online and I found another video. And it tells the story from a different angle. We need to watch this.
What are you doing?
Nothing. I don't know where I'm going to go, but I gotta go.
When you try your best but you don't succeed, when you get what you want but not what you need, when you feel so tired but you can't sleep, stuck in rivers, and the tears come streaming down your face, when you lose something you can't replace, when you love someone but it goes to waste. Could it be worse? Lights will guide you home and ignite your bones, and I will try to fix you. High up above or down below, when you're too in love to let it go. But if you never try, you'll never know just what you were. Lights will guide you home and ignite your bones, and I will try to fix you. Tears stream down your face when you lose something you cannot replace. Tears stream down your face, tears stream down your face. I promise you I'll learn from your mistakes. Tears stream down your face. Lights will guide you home and ignite your bones, and I will try to fix you.
Quit now. That was pretty much the story. But I've got a few other things to say as usual. The other brother. We saw the story from the point of view of the little fish, the younger son. Saw it from the point of view of the father. And I loved that he set out that party from day one. And I don't know how those balloons survived for 2 years, but he had those balloons ready for any minute now. His son would be back. And that's powerful stuff. But what about the other brother? Because he's been the good guy. He really has. The other one was rebellious. This guy was responsible. He did his duty. He stayed with his father. He helped his father. He worked in the fields. He was a contributor to the family. And so we have that tension of what we're looking at, we talked about this, Sherry and I, about this, and Sherry pointed out, and I think she's right, that father was, well, he was kind of caused the problem himself, didn't he? I mean, he just gave the kid everything. You know, spare the rod, spoil the child. And when the kid wanted Dad to be dead and give me my share of the fortune, which actually 2/3 would go to the older brother and the 1/3 would go to the younger brother, he wanted his now. He didn't want to wait. Couldn't stand it anymore. He wanted to get away from what he considered an unloving situation. He just could not stand his father anymore. He could not stand his brother. And he had to get away from it. He was not running to. He was running from. But I want you to notice something, and I don't know if you were paying attention, probably were. Jesus never says that he wasted his money on prostitutes. He says he went off and he was foolish with his money, is the actual translation. It wasn't that he may have bought Enron, I mean, or something like that, you know, big mistake, and all of a sudden he's broke. He was foolish with his money. He probably was just buying friends, and that all fell apart. But we don't know that until the brother comes in at the very end and he says, "This son of yours wasted all of your money on prostitutes." I'd like to know how the older brother knew that. Ever think about that? And we always take it to be the truth because that's how we see the scenes when we watch the story from the son's point of view. We see him having a party and good times and lots of drinking and girls and everything. But that's the brother's point of view, and that becomes our point of view because we like to be the responsible ones. And thank goodness we are, because we couldn't get things done unless we were responsible, unless we understood what duty is. But that's the other brother, and I've asked this. I'll ask you real quick. How many of you identify with the younger brother? Okay, a couple. All right. How many with the older brother? Most everyone else. Okay. That's the way it usually is. Those in church tend to identify with the older brother, and that's okay. Because it's not about older brother being responsible and duty-bound and the younger brother being irresponsible and rebellious. It's about the prodigal father. I always thought prodigal referred to the son. The prodigal son. The prodigal son. What is prodigal? It's to give with generous extravaganza or extravagant generosity. It is to just lavish gifts upon people. It is to just think in terms of abundance. And that's what the father does. He gives abundantly to both sons. Probably when they were both at home. Certainly when the younger son wanted his inheritance. Go ahead and die, Dad. Give me my money. And he just writes the check. He gives. And he gives by setting up the party from day one. Keeping those balloons full. And he gives by running out to the son when he's still a long ways off. And he gives to the younger son, the older son. The older son comes in, he's all huffy and puffy, "Oh, this son of yours." And the father leaves the party, goes out, and talks with his older son. And tries to help him understand what love really is. We, as mostly older brothers, we believe in compassion, we believe in love, but sometimes we kind of want to love people on our own terms, which means we want to define them by the rules we have. Good people, bad people, punks, druggies, homies, dangerous people. And since we're afraid of them to some extent, we ascribe to them values that may or may not be true for them. It's compassion. Sometimes it's kind of long-distance compassion. We give to this, we give to that, a long ways away. It's hard to be compassionate to the person who lives next door because you know they might become your friend. And there you are. But compassion has to come with awe. Compassion with awe. This week, the whole sermon was turned around. Let's have that slide, okay? The whole sermon was turned around when I listened to a podcast called On Being with Krista Tibbetts. Have anybody listened to that by any chance? It's going to be now she has a little bit. I'm going to put this interview in its entirety on our website so you can watch it. But she was talking with Father Greg Boyles, who is a Jesuit priest, and he was appointed, like Methodists are appointed, he was appointed to the worst parish in Los Angeles. I mean, there are at least 18 gangs of boys and girls who live in this neighborhood. And he worked hard at making the gangs have a peace treaty, kind of worked, kind of didn't, and then realized that the one way to keep these kids out of jail is get them jobs. So he tried to start a job reference ministry. There weren't any jobs. Who would hire these kids with their tattoos and their drug addictions and their gang membership and their records? Hard to get them jobs. So he talked a very, very generous donor into buying a bakery in this area. And they created Homeboy Bakery. And then it went from there.
Homeboy Industries is the largest gang intervention and rehab center in the United States. We get about 15,000 folks who walk through our doors every year. Gang members trying to redirect their lives. They might come for tattoo removal and discover that we can locate a job for them, or maybe they need counseling.
I was born and raised in one of the most gang-infested areas in Los Angeles. At 12 years old, I started getting involved in drugs, selling drugs and using drugs. At the age of 15, I was looking at life in prison for attempted murder. Luckily, I was charged as a juvenile, did 5 years altogether. Upon release, I came and talked to Father Greg, and he just signed me off and told me, my son, come back Tuesday. And after that, I've been working here ever since. And without Homeboy Industries, I would probably be back in jail right now.
So recently I gave a talk at training, all-day training to 600 social workers, a training on gangs. I had two homies with me, and one of them was a guy named Jose, and he got up, and he gets up and he says, very offhandedly, I guess you could say that my mom and me, we didn't get along so good. I guess I was 6 when she looked at me and she said, why don't you just kill yourself? You're such a burden to me. Well, the whole audience did what you just did. They gasped. And then he said, it sounds way worse in Spanish, he said, and everybody did what you just did, And then he said, I guess I was 9 when my mom drove me down to the deepest part of Baja California, and she walked me up to an orphanage, and she said, I found this kid. And then he said, I was there 90 days until my grandmother could get out of her where she had dumped me, and she came and rescued me. And then he tells the audience, my mom beat me every single day. My back was bloodied and raw and scarred. In fact, I had to wear 3 T-shirts to school every day. The first T-shirt, because the blood would seep through, and then the second T-shirt, you could still see the blood. And finally, the third T-shirt, you couldn't see any blood. Kids would make fun of me at school. They'd say, hey, fool, it's 100 degrees. Why are you wearing 3 T-shirts? And then he kind of loses the battle with his own tears a little bit, and he says, I wore 3 T-shirts well into my adult years because I was ashamed of my wounds. I didn't want anybody to see them. But now my wounds are my friends. I welcome my wounds. I run my fingers over my wounds. And then he looks at this crowd and he says, how can I help the wounded if I don't welcome my own wounds? And awe came upon everyone. Because we're so inclined to kind of judge this kid who, went to prison and is tattooed and is a gang member and homeless and heroin addict, and the list goes on. But he was never seeking anything when he ended up in those places. He was always fleeing the story I just told you.
Feel the awe. awful, and awesome life of that young man before you. Elsewhere in this interview, Father Boyle says, we're all walking around looking for love. Everybody is walking around looking for love. The younger son left looking for love. The older son stayed looking for love. You never gave me a party. Don't you love me? We're all looking for love. Every person you see every single day desires to be loved. And what Jesus does and what Jesus calls us to do if we're going to walk in His way along His path is to love. Is to listen for those stories and understand where those scars came from and understand where our wounds come from and accept our wounds so that we can accept and heal the wounds of others. I think that's what the story of the prodigal father's two sons is all about. God wants to give us so much love, but we cannot take it as long as we're looking to others to love us. And we cannot just stop loving others in order to get God's love. The trick is as we give our love, our compassion, and share in the awe of each and every individual life, which is unique and powerful and dynamic and meaningful. When all of that, through all of that, God fills our hearts. And we know love. That is the walking with Christ. That is the way that's better.